Welcome to the Two Guys Talkin podcast. Join us for fascinating conversations about life, business, and the stories that make our very interesting people tick. Explore the meaning of success, delve into the journeys of our VIPs and their careers, and discover what inspires them. Two Guys Talkin is hosted by Megan Hays-Reid and Bill Davis and is available on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the bell, like, and join our community celebrating authenticity and the pursuit of knowledge. Now, I would like to introduce my amazing co-host,
Hi, everybody.
Megan.
My name's Megan.
Hi, Megan.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much to our guest, Chris, for being here. I have a short little bio that Chris wrote for us, so I'm just going to go over what we have here. Chris and I actually used to be neighbors before we moved to Wyoming. And so that's how we know each other. And we'll get to how we met in a little bit. But first, I'm just going to give you a little bit background. Chris grew up in Queens and Long Island, New York. She went to college in upstate New York. She's technically the youngest of three. She is a twin, so I'm assuming the younger twin. Also has a brother that lives in Buffalo. She's married to a great guy named Ray. They've been married for 17 years, and they have two kiddos named Clara, who's 14, and Garrett, who is 11. Chris is a creative type, and that's why I love her so much. She's passionate about learning lots of things and creating things. She likes to bake mostly, and her macarons, we'll talk about the difference in a few minutes because we have the expert, are amazing, along with so many other specialties. She learned from her mom and her nanny, and here she is with us. Thank you so much, Chris, for being here. We're excited to have you. I know I just did a brief bio, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I mean, I spent most of my life in New York. I moved to Maryland to be with Ray, not long after I finished college. So, and we've been together since then. So we met when we were in our early 20s. We got married when we were in our late 20s. And I mean, I have always just loved to bake and be in the kitchen and be with my mom. And, I had Claire and Garrett, and I wanted them to learn and do all that stuff. They just never got into it. But I mean, for the most part, my whole life has been trying to learn and find new stuff to teach myself. So that's a lot about who I am.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah. So we have a bunch of questions for you. I'll let Bill start. We like to talk. Do you want to talk about the beginning, the middle, and the end?
Sure. So we kind of approach this in our conversations about talking about, kind of like what was your beginning? And you kind of told us a little bit about that. What's your middle? And your middle is now. And it's like this big giant, time block. And then there's the end, which is, not your
but maybe
death,
close to it. Yeah, I got you.
What do you want to leave? What legacy do you want to leave? So, I mean, I think this is a good segue into Megan and I did the first episode, and I interviewed Megan, and we talked about how we met and stuff like that. So that might be a good segue into how you guys met, because I think it's, some of my best friends I met under weird circumstances.
Yeah.
So and I have a story about how we met, but I want to know what your story is about how we met.
I have to be honest, I don't think I knew very much about you. I think probably just like you sort of make a name for yourself in our community when you, I don't want to say anything wrong, but when you sort of talk out your behind on the resident stage. And so people start to have an idea of who you are that you aren't. And I don't know. I wouldn't say that I had any kind of impression of you, but I think we probably had some kind of interaction from that.
Yes.
And then later on, right?
That's what I remember too. And I was like,
okay.
And then I think we realized, we're actually very similar. And, and then we moved in next one house away. And I was like, oh no.
Right.
Oh no.
And
Now I'm going to be living next to this lady. I think she hates me.
I don't have enough time in my life to hate people, Megan, to be
Okay,
quite
good,
honest with
good.
you. And the truth is, and here's the truth. I did not want people to judge me based on a
Yes,
few
of course.
pithy and maybe poorly worded comments that I maybe would have made, that I maybe should not have made, and I would not have made in like mixed company
Yeah.
otherwise. And so I think from that, my husband and I then took the approach of we'll just say the comments to each other now
Yeah.
and not make comments on the residence page. And so from that point on, I was like, no, I know I don't want people to think of me as just this one note person,
Right,
right?
absolutely.
And so I actually was grateful that you didn't immediately be like, "Oh my God, Chris!"
No.
Like, and then I, because you could have done just the same. You could have done just the same, right?
Right.
Like we could have both been at each other's like, you know what I mean?
But
like
we didn't.
attitude-y. But
we did not do that.
No, we didn't.
And I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful for you as a
Me
neighbor.
too. Yeah.
And then we had a great relationship after that. And I
Yeah.
think that we bonded over some IPAs a couple times and
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you that I very much appreciated your perspective. My son has ADHD, and Megan I had a moment where I think I had completely lost my bananas, and I was crying and Megan saw me, and she was like, "I'm gonna come over and just sit with you for 15 minutes and remind you like this too shall pass," which I have to tell you, that was probably one of the more defining moments of my parenting with my kids. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It was, it's nice to be there for somebody when, you hope that somebody will be there for you. And if you are feeling that way too. And, it's just,
Yeah.
I appreciate you. And, yeah.
And I have to tell you, like, I'm so proud of you. Like, you give me so much inspiration. Like,
Oh my
I
gosh,
don't know that
stop it.
like, in all the conversations, no, it's true. In all the conversations that we have, like, after I'm done talking to you, I'll say to my husband, like, oh my God, she's living such a life that I wish I could get out of my own little box and like go live that life. It's amazing.
Well,
and
thank
I think
you.
That's great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. But yeah, I love talking to you, and I've shared things with you that I probably shouldn't have when I was auditioning for the show on MasterChef and stuff like that. But you were
I am an excellent secret squirrel.
You are an expert. So I had to, use my resources because you are a pro.
Unfortunately, I don't think I helped you very much.
You did. And, we have more stories, but we'll get into those. So I don't want to take up this whole time in the beginning because I want to talk about the Vina Tarta and other things too.
Okay.
But yeah, so we kind of went through your family is not native to Washington. Tell me about that.
No, I mean, I grew up on the East Coast. I lived my whole life on the East Coast.
But now you and your extended family live in Washington.
Yeah, so my twin sister, she lives about 3 blocks away here, with my mom. So my sister was in the military. She was in the Army for 22 years. Her very first duty station was at when they used to call it Fort Lewis before it was JBLM. And she fell in love with being here, being on the West Coast. And again, I had spent my entire life on the East Coast. I never thought I would leave there.
Yeah.
Just, it's like, what, West Coast? Why would I go there? Like, what's there? Because, that's the kind of people we are. And,
it's the same on this side too. We think that too. We would never move to the East
you.
Coast because that's crazy.
I was like, there's nothing there for me. So when she said she was going to stay, I was like, oh. And then she told me she was having a baby, and I was like, that's my sister. I got to be there. So I convinced. It didn't take very much to convince Ray to come, because once he saw Washington State and he loves the outdoors, he was like, yeah, we're moving. And I was like, okay. And so we packed our bags and we moved here, and I would not go back to the East Coast.
Oh my gosh, look at
Like,
that. That's
truly would
huge.
not go back.
That's huge. That is so outside of your
Yeah.
comfort zone and a huge move. And, you
Yeah.
talk about being brave. That's
Oh,
so
yeah.
brave. I mean, just like leaving the whole side of the whole coast behind. And
You know what, we needed to do that though. I'll be
yeah,
honest with you. Our I don't know what our life would have been like there, but it definitely wouldn't have been what it is here, which has been so full and rich of people and things, and like there we do things here that I don't think we ever would have done there. And we had like close family there. But it just was not the same when we got here, and it was my sister and my mom. Like we just had so much, and then we had so much support here in this community. It was amazing. I was like, this is the stuff we've been missing.
right.
Like, this is the stuff that my kids have been missing. You know what I mean?
And speaking of those things and the outdoors, you bike,
Yeah.
you canoe,
Yes.
you do Orange Theory, you do it
Yeah.
all. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So who
We do.
was
Yeah.
into the biking and all this stuff first?
So Ray has always been into bikes. One of the things, so he learned from a very young age how to fix bikes. So he has like a little bike fixing thing here in the neighborhood because everybody's outside,
Yeah.
so everybody owns a bike here.
Yeah.
So he just because he always loved it, he actually said if he didn't have to make money, he would have been a bike mechanic. That would have been the job that he wanted to do because he was always so into the mechanics of bicycles. And he bought me my first bike, like maybe, oh God, it has to be 15 years at least now. And we would go out and bike, and then here he mountain bikes. Don't ask me to mountain bike. I'm never going to get on a mountain bike. But we do the trails because I like my limbs.
Yeah.
Thank you. But we do the trails around here, not just in Tahali, but like there's all kinds of like amazing bike trails. And so that's something that we do together. It's something we've always done together because it's a passion of his, and I like to follow his passions, and he likes to follow mine. So.
That's so great. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Cool.
But he's the reason. Well, so I'm the reason why we're sculling, though. I'm the reason why we're rowing.
Right. Okay. What did you call that?
So
Sculling.
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 So
okay.
Yeah. So sculling. So you guys have seen this on the Olympics, right? This is like two paddles backwards. Right. Okay. So, or if you've ever been on a rowing machine, it's the exact same thing, except
water
in the water.
Yeah. And freezing.
And so we have two. I would say that they're probably one of our a close couple friend of ours who started sculling a year ago, and we finally convinced Ray to like try it out. And so down in Tacoma, Lakewood, they actually have like a rowing club, and they do a learn to row class. And I was like, okay, 5:30 in the morning, let's do this. And not a morning person. And so Ray was like, are you going to be able to do this? He's like, can you? And I was like, I got this.
Yeah.
Like, the very first day I was like, I don't
got it. So, I'm not going.
I don't know. And of course, they put you in a single scull, which is like the most nerve-wracking thing I mean, I've done a lot of nerve-wracking things, but that is like, I'm going to fall in the water. I could die right here. Like, there's a lot of fear that goes into it. But when the coach was like, oh, we're going to put you in the single scull, and I was like, I said an expletive, and he was like, well, we could put you in a double. And I was like, no, dude, I'm here for it. Like, that's why I'm here.
Okay.
And I need to just get over it.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, I'm going to do this. And if I get wet, well, then this is life, and I'll just move past it. But I managed to stay dry and make it to shore. So
I love that attitude.
And tomorrow.
I love that attitude.
We'll be there tomorrow.
That's so great.
If they put me in a single skull, again tomorrow, though, Megan, I don't know what's going to happen.
We'll see. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, let's move on to, or do we have other questions in the early years that we want to go over? Bill?
Well, a question I always like to ask everybody is, so what was your favorite thing to do?
My God, it's
as a
funny.
kid?
We were just talking about like growing up and like what do we remember about our summers growing up, and there
Yeah.
wasn't cell phones and things like that, obviously. I'm in my 40s. So I just loved being outside. We used to put on these little plays around the neighborhood.
So
You know
good.
what I mean? You'd get all your friends together and like put together like these little plays. It didn't
Yeah.
even matter what they were, but you would lip sync songs. And those are the things that I remember, and those are the things that I
Mm.
loved about my childhood. It was very carefree. I don't think there was not a worry,
Yeah.
to be around. And even though like things were happening in the world, things were scary, like it was never brought to
Mhm.
me. I feel like my kids now, they know too much.
Yeah.
Know too much about what's going on in the world. And I didn't. And so what I loved about being a kid was that I was a kid. Like we did those fun things and you made your own fun.
Hmm.
My mom always used to say all you needed was a stick and a friend, and that was literally my childhood.
Right.
A stick and a friend.
And
Like
look how creative you are. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you
Right.
wouldn't have been this creative if you would have had all the plastic toys in the world to play with, you know?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you might be right
Yeah,
about that. Yeah. Maybe give our kids too much now, for
for
sure.
sure. I mean, I just
I believe
showed Bill
that.
a picture of the heap of toys I was cleaning up in my daughter's room, and he was like, "What the hell is that?" Like, yeah.
Right?
And she told me like 7 hours
I
later
have to
she had
tell
just
you,
finished with it.
I mean, I'm grateful for what I've been able to give my kids that maybe I didn't get when I was younger.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is a point where I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? You maybe don't need it all.
No, for sure.
I can give it to you,
But
but you don't need it.
yeah, you
Like,
can't give him it all. Yeah, for sure.
no.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah. And then the last thing I want to ask about early on is, did you have a favorite
And I want
subject
to ask
in
too,
school or
Um,
class
so
in
add
school?
on to that, like, what were you like in high school? He asked me that, and he didn't ask you that.
Sure.
And we need to know.
Sure, I'll answer both those
Yeah.
questions. So my favorite subject in school was always music,
Mhm.
always. I love to sing. I have always loved to sing. I actually learned how to play the ukulele about 4 years ago,
That's so
and I
awesome.
played piano. So music has always been a big part of who I am as a person. In high school, I was nerdy,
So we're the best of
and
us.
I had a very I had two very best friends. They ended up getting married much later, to each other, surprisingly enough. You know how that goes. But I was in the choir. I was in our school plays. So I was that drama kid. That was who I was when I was a
I
kid.
love it. I love that.
Shocking,
I
right?
know. Mine wasn't too
All right,
shocking
thanks.
either. But yeah, I love that. So now,
I'll be honest though, I don't know that you could pay me to get on stage now though.
right? What happened? I mean, did you?
Truthfully.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what happens when we get older? Where do these nerves come from? Or, the self-consciousness probably comes in.
You know what I think it is? It's when you're young, you literally don't know anything.
Yeah.
So you don't know to be nervous or
Yeah, we've
scared or
built up.
worried about that. Like I see the confidence of my 14-year-old,
Isn't it
like
beautiful?
getting up on stage and singing and
Yeah.
performing. I love it.
That's true, because we've
But
built up
now,
this
like,
conditioning, I feel like, that like, oh, well, this person might think this or this person might think this. And then some of the best advice
yeah.
that I ever received was, nobody gives a shit what you're like. Yeah.
You're right.
They're worried about their
so
own
right.
stuff.
About themselves.
Yes.
Absolutely. I believe that. And I just have to remember that. And like, really,
Yeah.
they're watching you do something. Like, I have performed for my friends, like playing and
Yeah.
singing, and was so nervous. And my girlfriend was like, you have a beautiful voice and you play really well. She was like, you should perform. And I was like, hell no. And she was like, but why? I'm like, because I like just sitting here in front of you two and I love you guys.
Yeah.
I'm like a nervous wreck.
Right.
And she was like, but we're just here to support you. And I was like, I know this.
Right.
Like in my
No.
brain, it's there.
Yes.
But I could never, like you were on TV. I don't know how you did it. I would have been.
I think I blacked out.
It's not
Yeah,
a thing.
I know.
I think you would have to. Yeah.
Some part of me took over. I made the food, and that was it.
That was it.
Yeah. So, but now you're here. You're in Washington. You,
Yeah.
what's the day job?
The day job is I am a manager, an external audit manager for OptumRx, which is a pharmacy benefit manager, part of United Health Group.
Okay.
Very exciting. It's a very exciting job, let me
Right.
tell you. I'll tell you what I love about that
Okay.
job. I think one of my better skills is I'm a very good communicator.
Mhm.
And that is part of the job that I do every single day. I communicate with people every single day, whether it's through email or I have to be on call with regulators or examiners. So I'm pretty thorough and I'm very detailed. And I think that speaks to that part of my personality.
That's so great. And then you get an outlet for that. And yeah. That's great.
But it's also part of the reason why I like to bake too,
Right.
though, Megan.
I was going to ask you, so baking is more of like, people say, anyways, I don't know if I've necessarily found this to be true, but baking is more of a science and cooking is more of an art. And you definitely have heavily gone towards the baking side, and so have I. What do you think about that? Do you find that to be true?
I think, I don't know that I agree. And I'll tell you why. There's precision.
Precision.
Baking, right? Which yeah. So, but I mean, yeah, it's precise, that's for sure. But it can be really super creative because once you get the chemistry and the science behind it, you can do all kinds of neat stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's just like anything. Once you get the parameters,
yes,
you can apply that to so many different things, and that can be its own creativity, right?
Absolutely.
So I think science, I know people are like, science and creativity are mutually exclusive of each other. I don't think so at all. I think if you're a good scientist, baking or otherwise, if you're a good scientist, you have to have a creative mind because you have to think way outside that box, right? So people are always maligning scientists as being so logical, and they think about like Sheldon Cooper from, which that's true.
Right.
But there is a process, right, where there's creativity, where you have to think, okay, if I want to get to that next step, this is what I need to do. And there is something about left brain, right brain.
Super creative. I mean, so much creativity has to go into it. And you need to read this book that we're both reading. It's called The Creative Act. It's by Rick Rubin. It's really great. I'll send you a copy. You need to read it. It's all about, how please. Like all of us are creative, and even life itself and the nature of life is creative. So we're naturally always creating, but we tend to think of it as like this exclusive thing that only a few people have, which, I definitely think some people have a creative gift, but we all have access.
Yeah.
So,
and we just need to tap into it. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, for sure. So, Bill, do you want to move down the line? I got lost.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we've got a good portion of what the middle is, but you have a regular job and you have your creative outlets and you like the outdoors, and all these things apply to me as well.
Yeah.
To be honest.
So
that's why we moved here, to be honest. We lived in a really great place in California.
Yeah.
But it was just too busy, and it took 4 hours to get anywhere, even though it was only, a short distance. We had some friends up here. They said, come up and visit. We came up and visited, and it was like as soon as some dominoes fell into place for us, and it didn't take long, we put our house up for sale,
like home,
and we came up here. And the reason we love it is because of the outdoors, and it's so accessible.
Do you still say back home?
Totally feels like home.
Or do you
one of these shows, I will tell you,
is Washington. Or do you say back home?
I don't really say back home because it's not really home.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
And it hasn't been for a really long time, right? Like it hasn't really felt like home. It's funny. We were just in Maryland, right? And we visited with Ray's family, and I couldn't wait to leave.
Yeah.
Like, that's how much it isn't part. And I lived there my entire life. We left when I was in my late 30s. So like, my whole
So
entire
you
life
were
has been on the
formed
East
there.
Coast,
Yeah.
and I was literally like, can we leave now?
Yeah.
Because it so did not feel like me
Yeah.
anymore. Like that's how far distance from it I had come from. And so we've only been out here, 5, 6 years, so it's not like it's a long
hmm
time, but this feels more like home to me than any place I've ever lived in my whole life.
And that's awesome because I feel like there's a different energy out west. And I don't know if we've talked about this before, but like all the history that you have, like, and all the busyness and all the crowd, it's so crowded, like it seems like there's almost like a buzz over there. And over here, it's like, it almost feels like you can breathe. I don't
Yeah.
know what it is, but yeah,
Yes.
maybe,
No, it's
it's
absolutely, it's
your,
funny.
maybe it's
It's
the
funny
energy.
maybe because having grown up in New York, I think from a very young age that I was not going to settle in New York City.
hmm
I just knew, like in my soul, I knew that that was not the place that I was going to end up. And I went to school in upstate New York, and I loved being upstate because it's very much like here
Uh-huh.
in that there are mountains and there's vast open spaces, and I hiked in the Adirondacks, and like I thought that's where I would end up.
hmm
And then having moved down to Maryland to be with Ray and sort of back in that city environment, it just sucked me out.
Yeah.
Like, and I knew that. So really, when my sister said, we're going to be in Washington, you should come out and take a look and come out here. And I was like, can I convince Ray?
Yeah.
And the minute we drove, I'm telling you, the minute we drove into Tahale, he was like, yeah, we're moving.
Okay.
Like he was right there. He
Yeah.
was on
On
board.
board.
There was just nothing that was going to stop him. Because I think in his soul, same thing.
Yes. Oh,
You know what I
that's
mean?
so great.
Yeah.
And I had that same feeling when I drove into that neighborhood too. And we all have that in common. We all
Yeah.
came from the same neighbor, or you guys still live there,
Yeah.
all from the same neighborhood in Tahale and Bonnie Lake. So
Yeah.
with all that being said, what are you working on right now? What are you excited about? Tell us about your passion projects.
Sure. So, I mean, most of what I'm doing now is still doing macarons. Like, that is still my biggest creative outlet. In fact, I have, so about every month or so, like, I offer a pre-sale. So I make a certain number of boxes, certain number of flavors, and I sell them out pretty
hmm
much. And then people come and they pick them up. But that's usually what I do. And then, of course, I do special orders for people's birthdays and things like that. That's the big thing that I'm doing right now. I'm mostly doing that because Clara's going to New York City actually in the spring, and I was like, I need to fund this trip somehow.
That's so
And
great.
how am I going to do that? I'm going to have to
So,
start selling some cookies.
so when are you going to start
So
shipping
that's
is
a
my
big.
question.
So as soon as I figure out how to do that, because really that is I mean, I have to tell you, people ask me all the time, like, can I get your cookies elsewhere? And you can do it. It's just that that's like a whole other situation that I
Right.
have to deal with, and I just haven't had a chance to look into it because my dad's always like, can you send me some cookies?
I
And I was
know.
like,
I would totally buy
no.
cookies. And yeah, so you need to start shipping, and then we'll tell people how they can support you. But in the meantime, how can people get cookies?
So I have a Facebook page,
Or how
and
can we
if you
follow
want, I'll give you
along?
the link. And
Yeah.
so I have a Facebook page. It's called Little Sugar Lily Patisserie, and that was just because I love lilies. They're my favorite. They were my flower for my wedding, and so I grow them and they're beautiful. And so I was like, oh, lilies, those are so
I
cute.
love it.
And I was like, okay, I just need to name this something. It can't just be like Chris's cookies.
Yeah. Need
So
something.
I did that, and then I have it, and then I have an Instagram page, which is the same. It's the same name at Little Sugar Lily
Uh-huh.
Patisserie, and I'll give you the spelling and everything for that because it's kind of funky. But that's usually that's where I post everything. It's a very small business. I literally only sell in this neighborhood, and that's due just to time, and like if I could expand. My day job pays pretty
Mhm.
good, and there's fear about like leaving that to go do this passion thing, which I have to tell you, I think my husband would 100% support
Yeah.
it. But I'm just like, I'm not there
Yeah.
yet. So maybe at some point.
It's scary. It's very
But
scary. But
this
I
is
think that
fun
you
for
could
me.
do it. Yeah. I mean, it just takes one little jump, and then you're, in Wyoming.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. That's why I always say I admire you, because you just were like, I'm going for it. And I was like,
Yeah, it was scary.
I'm like,
But, you know, I mean, when you're doing what you're passionate about, the universe tends to support that. And, you know,
yeah.
yeah.
I know, in a way, I agree with you, and I think that that would be true for me.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, if I wanted to put all of my time into it, it would be a success, because I would make it a success. Because just
Absolutely.
like you, when you work hard,
Hmm.
it tends to kind of pay itself
It
back, right?
does.
Most people, if you have a lot of passion behind what you're
Yeah.
doing, people see that and they want to embrace that. And the other thing is, this community has been awesome about embracing small little tiny businesses like
Yes.
mine. And they've really like boosted me up, and I could just, and it's fine where I am, and I'm okay with it, because it gives me the creative outlet that I need,
Uh-huh.
and the support that I need, and the little extra dollars that I need.
Hmm.
And it satisfies that little piece of me that I need,
Yes.
without being overwhelming to me.
That's so awesome. And not everything has to be like a huge thing. And it can still be
Right.
amazing. And it is. That's so great.
Right. Right. And I think that's the biggest thing I want people to know, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to sell your whole entire house and move to Wyoming.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to, that's
Yeah.
great, but you can do like these little things that satisfy that creative part of you,
Mhm.
and do it in a way that makes sense for you. And this is something I think that we said this at the very beginning, which is one of the things that I am passionate about: learning new
Mhm.
stuff. I will teach myself new stuff every so many months. I taught myself how to hand embroider. I taught myself how to crochet. I will teach myself how to do stuff just to say I know how to do that.
Yes.
Right? That's just the kind of person I am. And actually, the reason for the macarons was I put together, I don't know if I told you this, but I put together a list of all of these baking projects that I wanted to learn how to
Right.
do, like random
Uh-huh.
things. Make a Boston cream pie, learn how to make cannoli from scratch, like all these projects that I wanted to learn how to do. And the very last thing on that list was learn how to make
Oh my
macarons.
gosh. And
So
it was the last thing that you
yeah,
did. And then was it
it
challenging?
was the last
And
thing.
then or was it?
Well, so by the time I got through that whole entire list, because there was about 25 things on that
Uh-huh.
list, it wasn't. I think if I had done it first, I might have been a little bit like,
Yeah.
But by the time I had gotten to, because by that time I had made croissants,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I had learned how to make like 12 different kinds of cake, like 8 different kinds of pie. Like I had learned all of this baking stuff. And by the time I went to go look at that recipe, I went, oh,
I
I
can
get
do
it.
that. Yeah.
I know exactly what I need to do.
Right.
I can do that.
And you
And then
did.
I was lucky enough. We had gone, I had gone to a class in Hawaii at Alani. We were DVC members for Disney, and they taught this class on like how to make French macarons. And I was like, oh, okay. But by the time she had taught the class, I was like, okay, I already know how to sort of do this. And she just reinforced what I already, and I literally came back, and 2 weeks later, that's what I made. And they came out perfect. And I was like, fluke.
Oh my
And then I
gosh.
did it again. And I was like, fluke again.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, maybe it's
Maybe
not a
it's not a
fluke.
fluke.
And so ever
And
since,
her macarons
yeah.
are beautiful. I mean, they're not just like some
Oh,
cookies
thank you.
that you would find in a bake. They're beautifully decorated, and I mean, they look like
Oh,
you
thank
don't
you.
even want to eat them. And yeah, that you just want to save them. Like just save them on display or something.
Oh.
So,
I've actually had people tell me, like, is there a way I could keep them? And I was like, well, you could put them in the freezer, but
yeah.
when you defrost them, they're not going to be very good.
No,
but
I mean,
it's up to you.
isn't that weird how we want nice things, but then we want to just look at them and we don't use them. And then, so
Yep.
this forces us to do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
That's like my china has been sitting in my china cabinet since I practically got married.
Yes.
And my mom was like, at some point, you're going to have to use this. And I was like, yes, for Christmas. She was like, yeah, for dinner next week. And I was like, but she was like, stop it.
Just use it.
Just stop. You're going to have to use it
Yeah.
eventually. I was like, okay. But it's true, though. But it's very
Yes.
true, because we want to savor all of those things. They're so special and
Yes.
important to us. And then we don't even appreciate them.
Right. I know. Yeah, because
Like,
we're not
because we're not
using it.
utilizing them.
Because we're not
Yeah,
using it as
totally.
it's intended
Absolutely.
to be used. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, macarons. macaroons.
Yeah.
Bill, yes.
Okay.
Bill asked me,
What's the difference?
and I gave him some kind of an explanation, but we're glad you're here.
Okay, so I'll start with the easy ones. Macaroons, Roons,
Yes.
right, as opposed to macarons, right, are a coconut haystack style cookie. Well, not really even a cookie. They're just a coconut haystack
Okay.
with chocolate on the bottom. Okay, and they're traditionally served Jewish Passover
Okay.
and things like that. So they're very specific. Macarons are people think they're French. They're actually Italian.
I did not know
They
that.
are a meringue-based cookie. Yeah, I can give you the whole history if you want it. They're a meringue-based. I know, you'll fall asleep. They're a meringue-based cookie made with almond flour and then filled with pretty much whatever you want.
Yes, and beautifully sandwiched.
Yes, they're like a little sandwich
Yeah.
cookie. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So now you know the difference. So the macarons are like a
Okay.
fancy cookie.
Yes, but I'm sure.
And macaroons are like a candy.
Yeah, and everybody just says macaroon for some reason. Like we have that stuck in our heads.
Right.
it's
So I
probably very
have like
frustrating.
a little meme. I have a little meme that like sort of goes through like macaron, macaroon,
Macaroni, yeah.
Marconi, right? Macron, like it's like all the different, and I've posted it before on my page, and it always gets a bunch of laughs because it's true. Like most
Yeah.
people are like they'll just call, and I'll be honest, I don't care what you call them.
Yeah, just buy them.
Just eat them. Just
Yes.
enjoy them.
Absolutely. Okay.
I don't
So
care.
you're not-
Call them macaroons. Call them macaroni.
So
I don't
you're
care.
not going to pull a Gordon Ramsay on us. Yeah. Yeah.
No. You know why? Because here's the thing, right? Like it doesn't really matter. Do you enjoy them?
Right.
Call them whatever you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's art. Enjoy it.
I don't care.
It's art. Enjoy it. Yes. So.
That's right. Right.
Yeah. I have a few more questions, but
Did you want to ask me about your Vina Tarta though?
I did. So. Oh my gosh. I was going to tell this story earlier, but so I have this recipe that has been in my family for years and years, and my grandma, it's in my grandma's handwriting. My grandma is from Iceland, and she wrote the recipe. It says like the abbreviations are weird, and it says to use like a coffee can to cut it out, and like all this stuff. And so for a gift for my dad for Christmas one year, I wanted to get, because my grandma has since passed away, and I wanted to give him a Vina Tarta because we had one every year for Christmas when I was a kid, because my grandma used to make it. And so I wasn't going to take on this project because it was intense, but you did. And
You totally could have done it. Oh my gosh, you could have done it. You really could have. I have to tell you, like you built it up to be like this thing, and I was like, really? Okay.
well,
So you all got to back this up because some of my friends
So
are
it's like a
watching and they have
cake.
no
So
idea
it's
what
like
you're
a
talking about.
cake. That's how I would describe it. It's like it's like a really tall, but the way that they make it is it's like you cut out pieces of
like
it's like
cookie?
almost like sugar cookie dough,
Yeah.
right? And you bake them. Yeah, it's almost like a cookie,
Okay.
like a very dense cookie, and then you make almost like a jam made with cardamom and
prunes.
what is it? It must be dried plums or
Prunes,
whatever.
yes.
Prunes, yeah. So I think that's what it's prunes. But it's actually a really nice, like it's very jammy. And the way that you do it is you stack it up and then you sit it out for like several days so that the jam basically goes into the cookie and makes the cookie soft. So it becomes like a cake.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put like an icing on top, and then it's cut in a very
Okay.
specific way
Yes.
to make it look like layer cake.
Yes. And it's very beautiful.
It's very
It's
cool.
an Icelandic thing.
It is beautiful.
Okay.
Chris did it.
And you
I
didn't do
did.
it?
I didn't do it.
I did
Chris did it.
You didn't do it?
it.
Oh, you did it.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Did you do it for her? Oh, okay.
Keep
Okay.
up.
All right.
Yes, it was. I mean,
See, that's
yes.
a good way to get
Outsource
things
when you
done.
can, if you're things that you're not the greatest at. Yeah.
But I followed
That's
Megan's
right.
grandmother's recipe.
Yes,
That's right. That's
exactly.
right.
And there was like rice milk and I mean all these things and she had to translate the recipe and it was in cursive pencil and yeah. But thank you for
But
doing
actually, I
that.
thought it came out real.
So you had to make
It
some
was so
educated
funny because
guesses
when you asked
somewhere.
me to do it, and I was like, okay, and I told my mom, and she was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah,
And I was like, "I'm making this thing," and she was fast. So my mom and we bond over baking. She was
I love
fascinated
that.
by this whole thing. And she came over when I was pulling it together, and she was like, "So what are we doing?" And so like I explained to her, just like I explained it to
Yeah.
you, Bill, like what was happening, and she was like, "I will be really interested to see how this
And it
turns out."
turned out
And then
beautiful.
when it really did. I was really shocked. And then you had brought me over the piece, and I showed my mom, and she goes, "Oh, I get it." She's like, "This is great." And then she took a bite. She's like, "Actually, I really like this." I'm like, "Yeah, well, you like prunes.
Yeah,
Doesn't
right.
surprise me."
Yeah.
Right. And so but it's sweet, and it has a really nice, but it's not like overly sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, American desserts, that's my biggest complaint with them is that they're so
Right.
sweet. I mean, I've made all kinds of desserts from all over the place. I made vine and stitch cake, which is they call it bee sting cake. It's like a yeasted
Ooh.
cake that's filled with creme patisserie and covered with like honey and almonds. And I've done all kinds of like fun stuff where I've been like, let me find some weird recipe from some weird country and
I
try
love
that.
that.
After that,
After
after
that,
you and I
yeah.
did that, I was like, yeah, I need to see all the weird recipes of the world now.
Yes.
And
And the things that are
try
important
to
to
make
people's
that.
family. And my dad was super happy and it made his
Yes.
Christmas. And yeah,
I'm so
yes.
glad. I'm so
So
glad.
thank you
Yeah.
again for doing that.
But that's why I bake too, though. But that's why I bake
Right.
too,
It's
though,
like, and
right? Because it just
food
brings
is so
joy for people.
important. Food, I mean, like so much of our life revolves around food. You might as well love it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
I grew up in a big Italian family, so like cooking and baking was my entire childhood. So this is the other thing that I wanted to tell you. One of the other reasons why I bake and why my mom and I bond with the baking is my brother for Thanksgiving. We moved out here, so since then it hasn't been. So for the last 6 years, no. But previous to that, when my husband and I first got married, we always hosted Thanksgiving at our house in Baltimore. And every year, my brother and my sister-in-law would come down, and every year my brother would be like, "Here's some weird dessert I want you to make,"
yeah.
and I'd be like, "Okay." And so my mom and I would be like, "Okay, how are we going to do this?" Right? And so she and I would spend hours like thinking about, okay, we should do this, or we should do this, or we should do this, and then create this dessert. And then my brother would be, of course, judge, jury, and
Right.
executioner on it. So, but very rarely would he be like, "That was terrible."
Right.
I
I mean,
mean, let's
because
be
it's a
honest, he probably
delicious
would eat anything.
dessert. Yeah. Oh my
Right.
gosh.
It's really hard to screw it up.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love that. And what a great way to bond with your mom. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
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 So, we've talked about the middle. I don't want to talk about the end. I mean, let's talk about the future.
Okay.
So, what's the plan? Like, do you have like a goal or do you want to be somewhere in like 5 years? Do you want to like brand your business, make it bigger? Do you want to?
Uh, no, I don't. I really want to be where I am. I got to be honest with you. I fell in love with Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
I'm definitely leaving here to go
Yeah.
there. Although to be fair, I said to Ray, I feel like we should keep a house here and then like have something small there. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to leave Washington State because I love it
Yeah.
here. But we both love Hawaii too, so I feel like it's going to be hard for us to make a decision.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: like I love my children, but I can't wait till they're out of my house.
Yeah.
Like I just,
Yeah.
I want them to be independent. Like I remember one of the things, like when I was young, and in high school, my mom said, "I have to start letting you go."
Yeah.
To be the adults that you're going to be, and I feel that way about my kids. So I'm probably give them a little bit too much leash sometimes, but I feel like I want them to be responsible and independent, and I want them to feel like I want to come back to a safe place,
Yes.
but I don't want to live there, right? Like, and that's the way I felt about my home and my parents growing up.
Mhm.
When I went off to college, I wanted to come home to a safe place, but I didn't want to live there.
Yes.
Not because my parents weren't wonderful, great human beings, but I felt like I wanted to be myself.
Yes.
And that's what I want to give my kids too. And so it's funny, we have this little running joke with my kids where I'm like, I'm going to sell this house and we're going to buy a 2-bedroom bungalow somewhere. And then the bed is going to be so uncomfortable that you're only going to stay like 2
Yeah.
nights, like that. So, and of course, my kids think that's hilarious because they don't think that it's true.
Right.
But here's the truth. But the honest truth is, and maybe I won't do that, but one of the things that I keep saying is like, why would you want to come back and live with your parents?
Right. They'll
What do we
change their
offer to
minds.
you?
They'll change their minds.
I hope so. I hope they want to come back and visit and be with us, but that they don't want to live with
Yeah.
us. Like I don't want them to feel like they can't be independent of us. That's one of the things that I'm like really cognizant of when it comes to my kids. Like you are going to eventually have to live your own
Yeah.
life. Like, and I want you to do that. And I want you to be successful, whatever you define
Oh my
that
gosh,
to be.
this
That's what I want you to do.
this leads
Yeah.
me up to my next question. How do you
Okay.
view success for yourself?
Oh, I think if I'm learning something new, I feel like that's successful to me. I always want to push myself out of my comfort zone. So if I've done that, then I'm successful, I think. And I think the other thing is if my kids are decent people, I just mean decent and they treat people
Yeah.
decently. I've done my job as a parent.
Yes.
I want I think success varies from day to day
Yeah.
probably too. Like sometimes like I'm looking at myself in the mirror going, and then sometimes I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
but for me, I think the thing that I define as being successful is just being able to continue to push myself outside of the things that I know I'm already good
Mhm.
at to try stuff that I'm not great at, which is very hard for me.
Yeah.
So
That's great. I love that answer. How would you view success for your children?
I think as long as they're doing what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be in their day job either,
Right.
right? Like as long as they're doing something that gives them joy,
Mhm.
that I think I would view as being successful. Like, because I asked my mom the same question. I'm like, do you think Nat and me and Rob, and my sister and my brother, do you think we're successful? And she said, yeah, look at where you live. You guys have beautiful homes. You have wonderful children. Like that's what I wanted for you.
Yes.
And because I think about like, what do I want? Because what I want for my son and what I want for my daughter is very different because their lives they're very different
Mhm.
people. And so I'm like, am I judging them differently? But really, the only thing I care about is that when they wake up in the morning, they want to continue living every single day, doing the things that they love and enjoy doing. And like I said, it doesn't have to be their day
Mhm.
job, but it has to be something that when they think about it, that's the thing that gets them
Yes.
up and moving, right? Because I have that. I have that every day of my
That's
life.
beautiful. That's a beautiful answer. Thank you for that. Would you consider playing us something on the ukulele?
I feel like I got railroaded right here.
Just a question. Just a question.
I could. You got to give me a minute to like figure out what I would play for you.
We've got a minute, but let's finish our questions. Let's finish our questions, and then we'll do that.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, Bill, I think has a couple, and then yeah.
Yeah. So, Megan said she didn't want to talk about the end; she wanted to talk about the future. And to me, it's the same.
Okay.
The end doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean it's over. It's just, if you break your life up into thirds, and it could be, 10%, 80%, 10%, or a third, whatever. So I asked Megan this question. And she cried. I expect you to do the same. No. The question really is, and I think you've kind of alluded to it, it's what do you want your legacy to be? And the second part of that question is, did you leave a mark? And let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we've all done like things we're proud of and things we're not proud of, and things we're like, yeah, so. You don't have to answer all that. Just
I mean, legacy.
tell us what you think.
I don't know that I want to leave one, to be honest with you. I feel like and the reason why I say that, and understand that the reason why I say that is I think that there's a lot of in the world now where people are like, I want to be remembered for something. But I don't need to be remembered by everyone. I just need somebody to know. I just need to know that somebody cared about me, right? So if my only mark is on my children and my husband and my immediate family, that's enough. Like I don't need to be out there and being famous or any of that kind of stuff. I don't even think I'd want it. I'm not really that kind of person. I'm not an out there kind of. I know that probably it always shocks people when they hear me say that I'm not an extroverted person, but I'm really not. I am very much like I like I like to do things because I like to do them for myself, right? So I don't know that I want to leave a legacy necessarily, right? Whether I do or not will be it's not going to be up to me anyway. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And then what was the second part of your question, Bill? Because I have a short memory.
So when you look back, you know, did you leave a mark?
Right.
Meaning, and that could be good,
I mean, I
bad, or
hope I
ugly,
didn't leave
or all
anybody
three.
crying in their cereal bowls. You know what I mean? Like, I hope I didn't. I hope people don't remember me as somebody who was mean or not nice or who wasn't open to change. I think one of the things that I would like, what I hope people remember about me is that I am not a judgmental person. I actually am just the opposite of that. I feel like I want to give everybody the opportunity to show me who they are really because I want people to know me for me. Right. That's going back to like just our initial conversation, Megan, about like what's first impressions. And I know how difficult they can be to get over. Right. So I'm hoping that my mark will be that people will say she was a good, true, and loyal person.
That's great.
And that's what I want for my kids too. I want them to be good, true, and loyal people. Good friends, helpful, kind. That's how I want to live my life. That's how I live my life. So
that's a legacy.
I mean,
It is legacy.
Whether I have one or not will be up to other people. It's not what I'm driving for.
Yeah.
I'm just,
and usually it doesn't work out that way. The people that are trying to do something end up not doing it, and then people not trying to do something are the ones that end up leaving their mark
of doing something. Right. And I think for me, like I'm a very loyal person. I will go to the ends of the earth for people. Like that's how I am. I look for that same quality in other people.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
well, where can we find you on social media? Tell us one more time.
I like it.
Little Sugar Lily.
So I have my Instagram. Little Sugar Lily Patisserie is my my Instagram page for my baking. I have a Facebook page for the baking too.
Okay.
Which is the same name, Little Sugar Lily Patisserie.
And we should be able to find that.
And you should be able to find it if you just look up Little Sugar Lily. You don't have to put in. I mean, you could. But yeah, that's it. I'm not really on anything else because me and the socials.
Right. It's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm not you, Megan.
No.
That whole TikTok thing. That's not a thing. I'm like, I barely know how to work my email.
Right. I mean, it's its own monster. It's a monster. Well,
I'm like, how did I get to this age and not know what you people are doing? Like, I don't. Oh, whatever.
I can't believe that we've been talking for an hour. It seems like we've been talking for 15 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I know. How crazy is that? But thank you so much for being here. I don't know if you have any more questions, Bill, but I just wanted to thank you for being guest number one and for being brave and for giving us content and
happy to do that.
And for telling us all of your stories. And, I just love seeing people live their passions and do what makes them happy. And I just see that so much in you. And it's a pleasure.
Thank you. Well, again, I mean, part of that is I'm inspired by other people. You inspired me, Megan. I have to tell you, I am telling you, every time we talk, I'm always like, oh. I wish I could be like that.
Oh, stop
I wish I
it.
could just do that. You know what I mean? I wish I could just no, it's serious. I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. It is so hard. Like I do a lot, obviously, to get out of my box, but I am firmly here, right? Like it expands,
Yeah.
but that's where I live. You know
And
what I'm
that's
saying?
and that's great.
But to
Yeah.
just
I actually think you just hit the nail on the head, and it just sums up the whole conversation perfectly, because
yeah,
some of us are meant to live in a
Yeah.
box, and some of us are meant to live outside the box. But the key to success and happiness is being comfortable,
yeah, sure,
Yeah.
yeah,
but not entirely comfortable in that box. And the way you
Yeah.
expand as a person
Yeah.
is you
Right,
expand
sure.
the
That's for
box.
crazy
You
people.
don't have to live
Yeah.
outside the box. Just make your box bigger.
I mean,
I
and
should
there's
know.
nothing wrong with that
Yeah.
either.
Oh my gosh.
Again, like but that's the kind of thing that makes me think, like, I know that that's not a thing that I could do, but it inspires me to do more with what I know I can.
Well,
You know what I mean? What I know I'm capable of.
you inspire me too. Just know that, and you're inspiring so many people, and your business is so cute and so amazing. And I'm just, I love it so much, and I can't wait for it to grow bigger if it's meant to be. And if it's not meant to be, then I will have to get cookies when I'm in Washington. But if it is, then I can't wait for them to be shipped someday. So
Anytime, Megan, anytime. You come
I
here,
will
you knock
be
on my
there.
door and be like, what you
I will
got?
be
I'll be
there.
like, here you
I
go.
will be there. All right. Well, thank you so much.